Good morning, friends from near and far, and welcome to another Sunday service from Sunburst Sanctuary. My name is David, and I'll be doing the service today, and the topic is Healthy Habits, Spiritual Continence. I'd like to do a reading from Norm Paulson, the founder of Sunburst, and it's a prayer, and I would like to use it to set the intention today for our service. O Mother Divine, you are the birth mother of souls. From you I have come forth into the worlds of living images. You, O Divine Mother and Father, have blessed me with this form and these five senses, through which to enjoy your gardens of beauty. When you are truly present within my consciousness, we will know together the immeasurable joy and ecstasy contained within your created images. Your presence will contribute the sixth sense to the ability to enjoy the creation of images from within and without. I will seek you and cry for you, Mother and Father Divine, within your forests and valleys of images, until that time when you bless me with your presence and add the sixth sense to the five. I will walk in virtue to the best of my ability, not overindulging in the gifts of the senses. Norm lays out a beautiful image there of the idea that we have the ability to develop what he would call the sixth sense of intuition. And it's a sense that interiorizes our desires that we might find soul awakening within, because our five senses are constantly being transmitting energy outward from our bodies out into the world and receiving energy back into our bodies. But we do have the ability to develop this inner sense, the sixth sense of intuition. Healthy habits and spiritual continence, the habit or the topic today. I was thinking about the word continence, and a friend of mine reminded me that the root word of continence is contain. And for the purposes of this discussion today, we can think of ourselves as containers, in that we contain the entire cosmos within us. And this is a concept that possibly we have heard before. Maybe we have heard the idea that we are all one. And these are things that are just hard to imagine or hard to understand by just simply thinking about them. But in fact, we can uncover these truths within us through the different practices that the teachers have brought to us over the years. The men and women who have come before on this planet and have had soul awakening have explained the concept of how we even come into these bodies and find birth in these bodies. And it's a fascinating story in that when the sperm and the ovum come together at the point of conception, it happens in the area within our head that is known as the medulla and the pituitary plexus. And it's in the center of our head, basically. And this is where the first conception takes place, and the biological conception of the cell division starts to happen. And also, at the same time, the creative force that we could call a cosmic creative force is involved, and it is full of divine intelligence. And it actually helps assist. It does assist, and it's a very primary and necessary part of the development of our bodies. But this conception takes place in what becomes later becomes the center of our brain, and it spirals out, much like all of the energies in the universe spiral. It spirals out, creating the upper structure of the brain, and then out, down, and through the spinal column. And as it goes out and spirals down, it generates and creates the cerebrospinal centers that are energy centers located along our spine, which allow our connection to spirit. And from those points, our nervous system and our organs and everything are energized and developed within our developing embryo. And at the end of that period, after we've been formed fully, this energy, this creative energy, which our soul is actually contained within, it settles in at the final chakra at the base of our spine. And in the Eastern religions, this is called the Kundalini Current. And it is a sleeping current that settles in at the bottom of our spine and basically rests there for the entirety of our lives while we're here on earth. And the fascinating thing about it is that while we are alive in these bodies, it is continually putting out life force and sustaining our bodies and connecting us to this world. There's a saying that while the creative energy or the Kundalini slumbers within, we are awake to this world. But if we can awaken that Kundalini current within us, and we can redirect it and have it return back to its source while we're still in these bodies, then as it awakens, we become really more asleep to this world, to the world of matter, and to the world of the five senses. And we start to develop what Norm was calling this sixth sense of intuition. And we start to awaken to a higher state of consciousness that we never would be able to tap into if we weren't able to awaken this Kundalini, this creative energy within us. When we're born, it seems like, especially when you see a newborn baby, it seems like they really are connected to an energy that's much more pure, let's say, than maybe our current state of consciousness. They are just so pure and clean and full of love, and they emanate a divine energy that is palpable. But as we grow and as we develop, we start to become more and more associated and identify more and more with the five senses and the experience of the outer world of matter. And when we hit our years of sexual development and that desire starts to take place, we even become more identified with the world around us and this drive to be involved in the pleasures of the world around us. And so it's not an easy thing to reverse the flow of energy from the five senses inwardly towards the inner senses. But it is something that can be done and has been done by many, many who have come before us. And if we don't feel like we're actually making headway as we're trying to go through that process, through meditation, through good habits, it doesn't mean that we're not actually making headway. Because Yogananda states that every good deed that we do brings us closer to the kingdom of heaven. Every time we choose positivity over negativity, a positive thought over a negative thought, it brings us closer and closer to our divine source. We're not here to necessarily withdraw from the activity of this world. We're here to, maybe put in a better way, become a conduit of spirituality into this world, to where we can exist both in the world but also have the awakened consciousness within, in order to bring the great wisdom and love and tolerance and just divine beauty of the mind of the Creator into this world and add to the beauty of the world. There's a quote with the service today. Your worst enemy cannot harm you as much as your own unguarded thought. But once mastered, no one can help you as much. And that quote is attributed to the Buddha. When I think about healthy habits, this quote really comes to mind, or it is in alignment with what I think about when I think about healthy habits. Because, I mean, we all have habits in our life that we know are either healthier or not as healthy. And they can have to do with just simple things like the dietary choices that we make, or the TV shows we watch, or the movies we go to, or whatever it might be. We kind of know, each of us internally, what brings us closer to who we want to be and what kind of takes us more out into, let's say, the world of matter. Years ago, I heard a quote from the Dalai Lama, which really stuck with me, and I've quoted it before, so you may have heard it before from me. But he said that people in the West, especially in the West, they really get the concepts of happiness and pleasure confused with each other. In that we're such a consumer society. We find ourselves going outward into the world, looking for happiness through the pleasure of our five senses. But we do know, most of us do know, that the happiest that we ever are is when we're at peace within ourselves. And when we're at peace within ourselves, many times we're being quiet and we're being in a place of observation and not necessarily a place of consumption. We might be sitting in a beautiful scene in nature, or we might be meditating deeply in our closet, or we might be meditating with our friends. Or we might be in an inspiring discussion with others who are like-minded, and these ideas and these inspirations bring us to a deeper place of peace within. And so I always like that idea, and we can kind of keep it in mind as we're seeking peace, and we're seeking satisfaction, and we're seeking joy and happiness. Are we doing things that are feeding our pleasure senses, or are we doing things that nurture that inner peace and that inner joy and that inner desire for soul awakening? Back in the 1970s, the founder of Sunburst, Norman Paulson, started talking with the folks back then that were around about the idea of what he called a field of power. And this is a field of energy that exists all around us and that we are connected to from within at the same time. And he explained to us that every thought that we have is like a seed that goes out into this field of power. And it takes root, and basically it becomes the reality that we find ourselves stepping into and living, that we are co-creating our very own reality of life by the thoughts that we're thinking. And some of these thoughts take root and manifest immediately, and others take many years possibly. We may have a desire that we put out and we forget about it, but then here it comes. It'll come back to visit us. And it's always great if it's a positive desire. But we can also tell if we've put some negative things out when they start coming back to us as well. And one of the things that Norm said back then that I always liked was, he said, you can always chase down a negative thought, a negative desire. You can chase it down out in the field of power and replace it with a positive thought. And I think that this is really a positive step in the direction of spiritual continence, in that we're taking this energy that we contain within us, this creative energy that's been with us since conception, and we're directing it and focusing it into whatever desire that we have. And we can choose our desires. We have that capacity through free agency to choose our desires and to create our own reality. And Norm used to talk about, he would say, be the shepherd of your own thoughts. Shepherd your thoughts like they were a flock of sheep or whatever, that you were trying to move toward the direction and toward the goal that you wanted to go towards. I always thought that was a great image. And he would also use the image of being a farmer. And if you find that you have weeds growing in your field of power, you can go in there and remove those weeds, and you can plant positive seeds that are going to grow fruit. Today, we hear a lot about the quantum field, or the vibratory field of energy. Through quantum mechanics and through the science, those scientists are discovering this very idea of what Norm was talking about when he talked about the field of power. And they are recognizing that if we observe a particle of energy, that it changes the behavior of that very particle. And this is really in alignment with what Norm was saying about how we create our own destiny. It's not just happening to us. We are a big part of that connection. We are a partner in the formation and the evolution of consciousness, not only for ourselves, but for those around us, and ultimately for the entire planet. And this is something now that the scientists are really interested in, and I find it interesting too that through science that they're able to identify these ideas and these concepts that men and women down through the ages who have had soul awakening have been talking about since the beginning of recorded history. These two concepts, science and spirituality, they are two sides of the same coin. There is only one reality, and we come at it from different angles, but we're all working our way towards a greater understanding of how we fit in, what our place is, and how we can develop spiritually while we're still here in these physical bodies. We're going to have a short meditation now together, maybe for 5 or 10 minutes. And we can practice this idea of reversing the flow of the creative energy within us and containing it within our bodies rather than letting it go out through the 5 senses, and redirecting it inwardly because that creative energy can be used to develop the inner senses so that we can receive and perceive this vast inner world of spirituality that we're all connected to. Join me now for some quiet meditation. I'd like to share a few more thoughts on this idea of spiritual continence and the importance of it. There's an author who I've really enjoyed reading over the years. Her name is Pema Chodron, and she's a Buddhist nun. And she's a wonderful speaker, and I've listened to a number of her talks. And on one of them, she talks at length about what she refers to simply as critical mind. And she talks about how much energy we expend in our lives through critical thinking. And of course, critical thinking has its place in the world. We have to think critically about how to achieve certain things. But what she's talking about, and she talks really specifically about, is more like critical thinking in terms of negative thinking, negatively critical thinking. And of course we know what that feels like. We all experience it. We do something that we're not happy with ourselves, and then we spend the next week beating ourselves up mentally because we fell short of what we thought was the right thing to do. And the spiritual perspective is to see these things that we do, learn from them, and then let them go and move on with the resolve that we have learned the lesson, and we will do our very best to do better the next time when we're faced with that same set of circumstances. And Pema Chodron, she's just a wonderful teacher. If you have the opportunity to get your hands on any of her material, I would really recommend it. And then the other idea that I wanted to mention was something that Norm used to also talk about many years ago. And he used the phrase spiritual athlete. And he would say, we can all become spiritual athletes. We can excel at spirituality just like an athlete excels at whatever their athletic endeavor is. And that continence, the preservation of precious life force through the containment of the energy that's going out from our bodies, is a way to develop our spiritual athleticism. And I always liked that idea too, because we know that what athletes go through and the discipline that they have to meet and excel at the very highest level that they can. And Norm used to really encourage everyone to become a spiritual athlete, to put the devotion and the time into whatever the disciplines that we have that will bring us to that highest level of spirituality while we're still yet alive in these bodies. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Make our lives a shining light for all the world to see. Make our hearts an open door to your eternity. May our lives reflect your love all across the sea, and help us to live evermore for thee. Show your face, Shine your love down on us all today. Shine out in the night so mine eyes can see the light that can set thy people free. We've been calling to you, Lord, won't you show your face? For the sake of those we love and this whole human race. We've been looking to the light, trying hard to see the light that lights humanity. So show your face, shine your love down on us all today. Shine out in the night so mine eyes can see the light that can set thy people free. Hearts of wiser men than I, poets, fools, and kings, sought to know you and the joy that your wisdom brings. Of all the suns and worlds we see, nothing can compare to all the love, the light that's shining there. So show your face, shine your love down on us all today. Shine out in the night so mine eyes can see the light that can set thy people free.